Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patrick Nippi. What I will be doing for you today is that I'll be explaining about the historical history of the powwow and what it means. One of the things is when it comes to the powwow, it's often recognized as a celebration of all nations and all tribes. And there's dance categories that come with the powwow, and also there's songs, there's singers that come with that powwow. Often today our powwows are contemporary, and long ago the historical perspective, powwows were viewed as a spiritual ceremony through different tribes. In my understanding and in my knowledge, what I'd like to acknowledge is that where I come from, I'm from the Kinistin-Soto Nation in Saskatchewan. I myself am a traditional dancer and also a hoop dancer. One of the things that powwow conveys is the celebration of life. What I'd like to do is acknowledge 3 individuals that have conveyed a message of inspiration and also honoring human life through song and dance. And these 3 individuals I'd like to acknowledge, first of all, is Tommy Christian from Poplar, Montana, that inspired me and carried the message of inspiration to me through dance. He's a well-known traditional dancer and also a champion dancer. I'd like to honor that man by acknowledging him. The other one that I'd like to also acknowledge is Boy Ladd, a fancy dancer, a well-accomplished fancy dancer. And one of the things the message that he conveyed to me and talked to me about is the importance of valuing human life through song and dance, form of expression of gratitude. The other one is I'd like to also acknowledge Donnie Spidell, also from South Dakota. And one of the things that he's conveyed the message of inspiration is to honor and also respect the different nationalities in life. So one of the things when it comes to my perspective on powwow is that often powwows today we have a variety of powwow celebrations from across Canada, all over the world. And one of the things that I like to often talk about is that the importance of diversity through song and dance. The historical meaning of the powwow, it was at one time, it was a spiritual ceremony considered. The first thing as First Nations people, we were taught to honor the spiritual component of powwows and the dances and the spiritual meanings behind that. There's a spiritual component to those dances. And that spiritual component is based on the individuality of each dancer and in each category and how they were given to them. And then one of the things is I like to talk about also is the grand entry. The grand entry, originally the grand entry came from the Wild Buffalo Bill days and how that evolved over the years. And one of the things is that it's about honoring human life, but it's also it's a form of expression of gratitude through song and dance. One of the things that I was taught by my late parents, because I grew up with my culture, the importance of my language and also the importance of believing in our culture through song and dance, is that my parents often talked about where the powwow originally came from. And my parents talked about it. And they used to say, they call it Pon Simuin, which originated from the Sioux people. And in this form, over the years, this powwow still carries the importance of people coming together, humanity coming together, symbolizing the importance of the circle of life. What I'd like to do now, at this time, I'd like to do a quick prayer, and as we get further into my explanation of the dances. So, Haniwako Magantik, all my relatives. Ginanaskum Tanawao Kakio. I'd like to thank you all. For listening to what I'm going to talk about. I'd like to acknowledge the Creator, but also acknowledge the people that believe in the powwow. Hawegab migagi tutmagia ne migagi zmuntan. Hawed gatis deman ha pon simun. Siwe ga pon simuat gagi zmuntan. I'd like to acknowledge my prayers, and I'd like to pray for the dancers that are dancing and that love to carry the dance. Haweb minanak tamuat gab mikna magiat ha hoe ubon simunio ganagamuat gab bon simuat siguge ganagamuat gab mikna magiat Hawe gagib me Hani gagib mi se ein tagu se at gaite KNC banik artas kenin gab mi se ein tagu is. What I'd like to acknowledge is through prayer, the prayers that were said historically, also up to the present and also into the future, and how the spirit of those prayers continue today, in today's society. Hab minanak tamuat, hoegab mikna magiat, bogusend muat, mikna maguziat gegu, siknamo, suichiguziat, hamimnike kituan. I would also like to acknowledge the message they are passing on through song and dance, and the importance and the meaning of song and dance through these dance styles. So what I like to do is, first of all, I myself a traditional dancer, but I'm also a hoop dancer. And one of the things when it comes to powwow, the importance of life, the importance of Native spirituality, because in today's society, these are gatherings that empower and uplift our people to continue in their lives today. One of the things that I like to start off by, when it comes to the grand entry, we have our dignitaries, and then we also have our powwow committees, and following behind that, we also have the important ones, the veterans, the Ogichitak society. That was an old society a long time ago, the Kitchitaks. That's a warrior society. And one of the things is that our war veterans were really reviewed highly in our culture, in where I come from, and that they were always honored. One of the things is that the first protocol and practice of Native spirituality and also in the powwow, circuit is the importance of tobacco and the symbology behind that. So one of the things is that when we have the Veteran Society, we also have the men's traditional golden age. We honor our elders because they are the library of our people, and they are the ones that are carrying on with the traditions, passing them on to the young people. And one of the things is it talks about it shows in the grand entry. It shows us about the 4 stages of life: adults, our elders, adults, youth, and then our children. That everything we do as Native people, because the circle of life is often displayed through dance, song and dance when we do a grand entry. The spirituality, the unity of our people coming together. And not one style is the same. It talks about open-mindedness and diversity within our First Nations culture, the different perspectives of humanity. So when it comes to that, we have our Golden Age dancers that come in. They're honoring us by their presence. Then from there, we have our men's traditional dancers that come in. And the men's traditional dancers, when they carry those feathers, there's a spiritual component to that. They have a responsibility to carry those feathers in a manner that is respectful and also in a proud manner. And one of the things that it reflects on their daily lives when they carry those feathers. So that was how I was taught. When it comes to powwows, to have respect, minachitiswin, for your feathers and also your dance regalia. And that's one of the things. There's roles and responsibilities and teachings within these dance styles. When it comes to the men's traditional dance, that's the oldest style in powwow history. That goes back to every tribe. They have their spiritual values and their spiritual protocols and practices that encompasses their regalia. So when you see a men's traditional dancer, there's a spiritual significance to their dance style. And it's based on individuality. It's not one person, it's not the one thing. One of the things is when it comes to spirituality, the thing is that it's about individuality. And one of the things when I talk about this, when it comes to the men's traditional dance, I'm a men's traditional dancer. And one of the things, the way that was given to me was through a dream when I was young. That was going to be my dance style that I was going to take in life. It was going to be about healing through song and dance. So there's many different reasons why, when it comes to these dances, there's many different reasons. Not one way is the same. We also have, after that, we have the men's fancy dance, adult men's fancy dance. That dance came from the wild buffalo days, that one. And one of the things is I've often watched one of the guys that inspired me, like I talked about earlier, is Donnie Spidell, a champion dancer himself, a fancy dancer. And one of the things that I found that those steps, the steps they have are very flamboyant. And one of the things that there's reason behind what their steps, their dance style, and their dance regalia, everything, there's a spiritual, there's a significance behind that. So not fancy dances again. It's not based on just one perspective, it's based on different diversities, you know. So one of the things is that when it comes to that, I like to talk about, the other one is the grass dance. The grass dance. That was a ceremony in itself that came from the Omaha, the Omaha. And that was a spiritual dance long ago, what they did before they started. And that grass dance represented the grass, the importance and the role that it played in nature, within nature. And one of the things is that when it came, the Omaha were the ones that dance style originated from. And there was a spiritual significance to that as well. It just didn't come out of nowhere. There was a spirituality behind that dance, and it was passed on, and it was all based on respect. It based on healing. And one of the things is that when it comes to the dance, with the dance techniques, the dance style represents the grass, how it flows in the wind. And one of the things that I found with the grass dance is that I found it to be a very spiritual dance, because before a powwow would start back in the old days, what they used the grass dance for was originally they were the ones that started off the powwow. They had to dance in that circle, in that spot where they were dancing. One of the things that I would also like to talk about is the importance of the eagle staff. One of the things is a highly respected dancer is usually asked to carry an eagle staff in. And one of the things is it symbolizes the spiritual component of powwow, and also the importance of unity, and also honoring every First Nations on Turtle Island. One of the things is, when it comes to the way that I was taught, when it comes to powwow and carrying that eagle staff, one of the things is that the way that I was taught was that as a dancer by my parents, as a dancer, we have responsibilities. There's the spiritual component of powwow, and that eagle staff represents that spiritual component of the powwow. So when you're seeing an eagle staff being carried in, that is where it's being shown and it's being exemplified through song and dance. When that eagle staff is being carried in, we're honoring the spiritual component of powwows. So further on, one of the things, so when we're at a powwow celebrations, one of the things that I've loved is that the diversity of cultures, the diversities of Aboriginal people. It's about unity, it's about respect, it's about honoring human life and the importance of human life. And song and dance conveys a message of gratitude through song from our people. So what I'd like to do now is to further discuss the dance styles. What I'd like to do now is go into the women's traditional dance style. We have the golden age, we have the young adults, and we also have the little girls, and we have tiny tots. The importance of women's traditional dance style is is another old dance style that was from that was back in history, that came from a historical background. That's been one of the longest dances too, is the women's traditional dance. And women's traditional dance is a stationary dance. And oftentimes it's when the spirit moves them to dance, and that individual dancer that carries They carry themselves in a dignified manner and also in a proud manner. Because the importance in the role as our Golden Age women traditional dancers is that they are the backbone of our people. They carry a spiritual significance within First Nations culture, but also within the powwow circuit, and the importance, the knowledge that they carry. So when they dance, it's an expression of gratitude. It's also an expression of healing for a woman's traditional dance. And their beadwork and their regalia symbolizes who they are. And the next one that I'd like to go into is the women's fancy. It's women's fancy shawl dance symbolizes, there's many different meanings to these dances. And one of them that I reflect on, the one that I reflect on when it comes to the fancy, women's fancy dance, shawl dance, is based on the butterfly and the movements that it symbolizes, the vibrancy of their womanhood, and also expressing themselves through song, through dance, and in their movements. So there's also a spiritual component to that too, and the spiritual component is based on that individual dancer and what they believe. I often take it to the dancer, because it's that dancer, there's a reason why they would dance for the way they do. And it's based on individuality. So when it comes to diverse perspectives, it's not one way. The other one I'd like to talk about is the jingle dress dance. The jingle dress dance originally originated from Ontario by the lady of name Maggie White. And that was a healing dance, that was a medicine dance. That was a medicine dance for the people to heal, people to help them in their lives. And it was through that, and that's how she was given, that dance was given to them. And it was through a dream. And one of the things is that when it comes to the jingle dress dance, there's the contemporary, there's the old style of jingle dress dancing, and so it varies on each individual dancer and what they were taught. And finally, one of the last and one of the it's often perceived as a special, is we have the hoop dance. I myself have been a hoop dancer since I was 7 years old. And that hoop dance has taken me all over the world. But it was also a dance that was given to me when I was young to compensate my life as a young boy. And one of the things is that the hoop dance is a storytelling dance that talks about creation. And there's many different interpretations and many different perspectives also with this dance, the hoop dance. And one of the things with the hoop dance, it's the symbology, the meaning behind the hoop dance is the circle of life. Everything we have is based on that circle, life cycle. We have the life cycle, seasonal cycle as well. And one of the things with the hoop dance is the patterns and the designs that they make reflect on the dancer and what they believe. I myself, my dance style when it comes to hoop dancing is the budding of the flower. The patterns that are made out of there are the sunburst, the eagle, the thunderbird. Also one of the things is that it talks about unity and it talks about change. So our lifestyle, when it comes to hoop dancing, oftentimes, I often say, there's the spiritual component to that dance. And one of the things is that it talks about spiritual awareness, spiritual development, and spiritual understanding and spiritual knowledge. It's based on the individual dancer, though. So there's many different styles that the hoop dance talks about, and it's based on that individual dancer and what they believe. Over the years, I've been a hoop dancer for over 30 years. And my hoop dancing has helped me heal tremendously in my life, as it's empowered me. The importance of expression through song and dance, but also conveying a message to our people, the importance of, as First Nations people, the importance to carry on our values and our belief systems in today's moderate society. And one of the things when it comes to powwows, the biggest gift we can give to our children and our grandchildren is the knowledge, and to pass on that knowledge to our children and our grandchildren. I myself already am a grandfather. And one of the things when it comes to powwow that I was taught, that was ingrained in me, was to always have respect for the diversity and the different perspectives of spirituality. One of the things my late mom, she talked about, she foresaw. This was back in the 30s. She foresaw that she was going to have her 3 sons in a powwow circle. And those 3 sons were the ones myself, my brother, Peter, and my late brother, Bob. So when it comes to powwow, for me, I believe in the powwow. But I'd also like to acknowledge these 3 individuals that have inspired me and helped me to believe in the spiritual component, but also the contemporary component of powwow too. These 3 individuals that have inspired me to live this way of life were Tommy Christian from Poplar, Montana, Boy Ladd, Vietnam War veteran, and also Donnie Spidell from South Dakota. These individuals have lived the powwow way of life, but they also carried, I've been honored to be friends with them in my life. And I'd like to acknowledge those people, but also my parents, my late parents, I would also like to acknowledge in the message they've conveyed through our spiritual protocols and practices. Everything was done in ceremony. It was about honoring our lives. So what I'd like to say, I'd like to thank you for listening to me, and I'd like to also ask you to keep an open mind and keep your hearts open. Because we live in a world, in a society today, that we have to work twice as hard to maintain our cultural identity and cultural language. And one way is carrying it through powwow and through song and dance. So what I'd like to say to the people is just, I'd like to ask you is to keep an open mind and an open heart. And I'd like to thank you for listening to me and hearing me out. Ginanaskam tanaw kakio. Agagiaitweat gaiteyak. Ay man pamatisyon. Nakoe piks kweon niapstan. Anyo akumagantek. Awe gatisindaman pon simuin. Sigo we gatisindaman nibo gego ga pon simuat. Pon simu gamik kisen katemagan. Undinamit nung pamatisyonikyon. All my relatives, what I'm talking to you is about the power and the spiritual component and also the contemporary component of historical, present, and future, is that we get life from song and dance, through spirit when we feel it. Thank you. Kinanaskam tanaw kakyo.